There we go. I think if the technologies are going to work with us, we are live everywhere. So, hey guys, hope you are having a great Friday. Hope you got big plans for the weekend. So, we are live on all the platforms. I think 3 of them. So, if you have any questions, want to hear your questions about real estate, let's talk. Let's talk about the market. Let's talk about what's going on in 2022 real estate. So, I've got a few different things we're going to go over, but would love for you guys to chime in. Let me know where you're watching from, what questions you've got. Say, hey, I should be able to watch all my screens. If you guys could only see my view, it's kind of getting ridiculous around here. But love doing live streams, love answering you guys' questions. So make sure to post them in the comments below for me. And hopefully I can keep up and keep with them this time. It was a pretty lively discussion last time we did this. So let's see how that goes. I don't even need headphones. You guys you can't talk back to me, which is very boring. I wish you guys could chime in. So, all right, cool. Let's get into it. We got a couple of people joining. Hey, let me know where you guys are watching. I want to see your platforms and your real estate questions. One thing I want to start talking about right now is interest rates. So this has been a huge topic for a lot of different reasons, but they've been raising them a bunch through the last year or so. Just from December to January, rates went up about 0.5% according to Freddie Mac. So that was a pretty huge eye-opener for a lot of people. The reason rates matter is because the amount of home you can afford is dramatically affected. So if you could afford, if you go look on our TikTok, I just did a video that I broke down. If you buy a house today for $350,000, for example, I think those payments were like $1,700. I use as an example. For that exact same home, fast forward a year from now, the same payment was almost $500 higher because the home is going to go up in value, something like 15% this year. Zillow said 16, other places were saying 7. So somewhere in that range, right, home values are going to go up. And then if interest rates go up as well, that affects your payment huge. And so, that same exact home, fast forward, it's worth a lot more, and then rates are higher. So it's almost $500 for the same house. Which is pretty crazy. So then the question goes, all right, well, we're only comfortable with that same payment. So I worked the math backwards, and basically if you rewind that clock, for that same house, you'd have to buy a home that instead of being listed at $300 today would only be worth like $275. So it's dramatically less home, which you would be getting in the future, if that makes sense. So interest rates are really, really interesting. If you have any specific question about rates, let me know. But otherwise, there's tons we can talk about. But so they have announced through 2022, if you haven't heard, rates are expected to go up. They were initially thinking like 1% across 2022. They've already gone up quite a bit in the last several months. And so, from what I'm seeing projected, it's kind of anybody's guess. The Fed, so what they do is the Fed meets, they decide based on inflation how much they think they should raise I think it's called a basis point or whatever. So the Fed raises their rates, which isn't directly tied to mortgage rates, but as a result, mortgage rates are affected. And so then banks basically base their pricing off of the Fed and what the Fed's doing. So when the Federal Reserve decides they want to meet, I think it's in March that they're meeting next, they'll basically come up with a game plan based on all their future projections, based on inflation numbers and everything else, which are the highest since '82, if you haven't heard me talking about that. Inflation's super high, meaning things are getting a lot more expensive. How they curb that is by raising rates, which pushes up mortgage interest rates, which pushes down buying power for buyers. So it's a way that they can control inflation to some extent. It's effective, but obviously it's also unfortunate for buyers that are also struggling a little bit and wages aren't keeping up and yada, 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 all the other things. So that's what we're seeing. What are we now expecting for 2022? I don't know. I mean, is honest the best answer I've got. We've also now got the Russia and Ukraine situation. That can also have an effect on things that we weren't predicting like a week ago, or we weren't expecting that to influence us, And so now we've got a plan for all of that too. So I would say probably still conservatively 1% more from what we're seeing. If interest rates go up by 10%, your borrowing power goes down. If mortgage rates go up 1%, your buying power goes down by about 10%. So for a $300,000 house, the equivalent would be 10,000 or 10% less, right? So about 30,000. So it's affected pretty huge. That doesn't take into account prices going up on homes too. So kind of a whole like very nerdy start, but it's a huge topic that everybody really needs to be aware of, and that we're talking about a bunch. So there's a little bit about interest rates. If you're just tuning in, we've got several people tuning on the different platforms. So love to see that. Let me know a question. I want somebody to post questions for me. I've always got a handful of questions that I can rattle off that we get all the time, and I keep a little stack of them on my desk for live streams just like this. But I want to know your questions. I want to know what you guys got going on, whether you're on Instagram or Facebook or YouTube or whatever tube you're watching on. I love that. And if you didn't know, we kind of launched into TikTok this year, which has been a pretty fun, interesting, weird little endeavor that Steve and I have been working on. So if you haven't, make sure you go find us on there. Mildly educational, mildly entertaining, and reasonably worth your time. So you can join us on TikTok. Let me see. Can we talk about new construction for a minute? I don't see any questions yet. New construction's been a really interesting one. So, all right, let's back up. Let's just talk about the market in general. We're in the strongest sellers market that we've seen basically in ever. If you're not following all the market updates and everything that I do, honestly, subscribe and all that jazz. But the market has never really been this strong of a seller's market that we've ever seen. So what does that mean? It means buyers are having to compete. You've heard all the horror stories, multiple offers, all that. It's exhausting, but it doesn't mean that it's not possible by any means. It certainly doesn't mean it's a bad time to buy for all the reasons we just talked about, with interest rates going up and money still really cheap. And so for all of that, it's something to be aware of and to get prepared to play the game when you step into the market. It's not something that you can just kind of dabble in. Quite honestly, I've got a client that shall remain nameless, but they're thinking they want to buy, but they're not really sure, and they're having a tough time, right? Because if you're not committed and resolved to, all right, we're doing this, and we've got to operate within the conditions of the market, then you're going to get pushed out of it. And so it can be a challenge, and it's not their fault necessarily, but you just got to get your mind wrapped around what the market's doing. So you got to come ready to play. Last month we went down, so we measure it in month supply of inventory. It's the fancy word of saying that that's the balance between how many buyers are in the market, how many sellers are in the market, and we should be between 4 and 6. We're currently at 1. So the lower the number is, the more a seller's market is. We were at a 1, I should say. Last month we dropped to 0.8, so it's 20% less than we had going into that month. So that makes it a challenge. That's that ratio. A lot of people are saying, well, I'm just going to hold off and wait. I don't want to compete. I don't want to deal with multiples. These prices are crazy. I think the market's going to crash, right? And I keep hearing this crash word, right? Here's the reality you've got to think, though, is in order for our market to shift significantly, call it what you will, we really have to see one of two things happen, and that's either a ton more listings come into the market or a ton of buyers get out of the market, because we've got the inverse problem right now, right? So we have to see one or the other or both of these things happen. The problem is we don't see any indications or any reason for why that would happen. Either of them, we are seeing new construction starts have been very good, and we just had our national report come out. The number of new construction homes getting started is very strong. However, the speed that they're building them at is slow due to supply chain issues and all that jazz. Just the logistics and labor shortage and all of that. And so because of that, it's stifling the number of homes getting built. And regardless, we're still seeing a ton of, there's been the last 5-10 years, there's been dramatically fewer homes that get built. So we're at a massive deficit. So it's great that we're back to where we should have been as far as the number of new home starts per month. Don't quote me. I think nationally it's like 1,000 per month or something that they want to see as far as new permits getting made. Or it might even be a week. Whatever the number is, we finally hit that benchmark again. So that's great. However, if we got a huge deficit to build up, what are we going to do? Like 3 times that benchmark to really recoup that number of new listings? The problem is we're not going to see that. Therefore, the market's not going to change because of that, right? So then what else? Buyers coming into the market. Well, I hate to say it, but if rates do go up a little bit, say 1%, that will stifle buying power. That will unfortunately eliminate some buyers from being able to buy. Or they just choose they don't want to buy. And so if that does happen, that could also take some buyers out of the market, which isn't good for that individual, but at least as far as the greater market, that could help us to become a little bit more balanced. But the reality is that's not going to all of a sudden shift us into this bubble bursting crash type of thing going on. So thank you, Steve. He's making my audio not suck, which I'm terrible about being loud and then soft, so he has to make me suck less. But so anyhow, since we don't see those factors, we don't see any reason to suggest that all of a sudden the market's just going to swing, right? And that's what we really need to see for the market to shift, okay? It's not locally. I'm not saying it isn't nationally. There may be other kind of like macro things going on with the greater U.S., but locally in Minnesota, we just aren't seeing it. So I do have a question. Let's see. Let's talk new construction. Naota, thanks for being here. Thanks for the comment. Let's see. New construction homes seem to be pretty high on price right now. Are any of them in the first-time home buyer price range? Wonderful question. No. It's kind of your answer, which is not what you want to hear. That's really, what's the best way to answer that? New construction being a first-time homebuyer price range. Typically, just generically speaking, I'm not sure that new construction ever is really intended to be first-time homebuyer price point. Okay. Is the cost of new construction high? Yes. The cost of everything is high. But certainly with supply chain issues and things, prices have gone up. I'm sure I haven't necessarily looked at the difference between an existing home and new construction, but I'm sure they've gone up more than an existing home. They're not significantly higher than we would expect, right? If the whole market's going up, new construction is always going to be higher. But as far as them being in the first-time homebuyer price range, the reality is no. It's kind of like with a new car, right? I mean, this might be kind of an extreme example, right? But a 16-year-old's probably never going to really be intended to afford a brand new car, right? Or the vast majority of 16, 18, 20-year-olds, right? So generally speaking, I wouldn't say that new construction is ever in that price point. Entry-level prices, just to give you an idea of our Twin Cities Metro, probably the least expensive new construction that I've seen, we might touch $400 right now for a single-family new construction home. There's a few different builders. I really like D.R. Horton. They're pretty good. There's Lennar, of course. I'm not a huge fan, but they are certainly a lower price point home. And it depends what you're looking for. If you want to let me know an area, I could let you know if I happen to know prices in that area. But there's a development in Delano, for example, which is way off to our western suburb. I was in there a couple weeks ago. And I want to say their prices are at $4.25 right now. Elk River, I want to say, is $4.25, if I'm not mistaken, for those two D.R. Horton developments. And then they go up from there, of course. There is a development in Coon Rapids that is a little less expensive. I haven't seen those prices recently, but I'd say about $400. They're a 2-story slab on grade, though. There's not even a basement for them. I don't believe, are in association technically, but they're single-family homes that are slammed together very tight with basically no front and backyard. It's kind of like a townhouse. And so for that, you're still paying, $400 or something. So let me see. She said, I saw a few reasonable priced new constructions, but they all had max income requirements. This is going to be a new trend for expanding pre-existing neighborhoods. I am curious, which city were you looking at those in? Possibly Minneapolis would be my guess. As far as max income requirements is pretty unusual, so I wouldn't say that's necessarily a trend. Why I'm curious what city you're looking at is because I have seen quite a bit of that sort of thing from the bigger downtowns, Minneapolis specifically, where they're really trying to do some rehabilitation of neighborhoods and stuff. So possibly in those types of areas, but to be honest, I have not seen that a lot. No, that there's a max income requirement for new construction. Okay, I take that back. In North Minneapolis, it was a couple of years ago now, but I did have a client looking there. That's a great example. Actually, I totally forgot about her, but a couple of years ago, we did have a lady looking, and there were certain income requirements that you were, I don't remember, 50% of the median income or no, 60%. I don't know what it was, but there was a specific income bracket you had to stay within. So that is, it happens, but it's not significant. And it's usually where they're trying to rejuvenate a neighborhood or whatever, rehabilitate it. If I could speak today, that'd be very helpful. Mitch Johnson, hey, thanks for being here, man. Appreciate you. Thanks for chiming in and asking a question. Mitch says, what's a good price to build approximate square foot? He's saying, example, 200 square feet. Mitch, to be honest, I don't hardly ever look at price per square foot. I think that's honestly more common in other parts of the neighborhood. But let me, I'm going to pull up the MLS here. So if you're on Instagram, you're not going to be able to see this. I do apologize. But let me, I'm going to take a stab in the dark for you, actually, because that'll be faster. So those ones that I had been looking at in Delano, what were they? I think they were 2,200 square feet, maybe. And let's say they were 440. Yeah, I'd guess you're between 175 and 200 as far as a basis for new construction. I know it's kind of sounds silly, and you're like, well, why don't you know price per square foot? The thing is, how much acreage is it on? Does it have a finished basement? Does it have the potential for a finished basement? It's going to be more expensive per finished square foot if it's got an unfinished basement, for example, versus you finish off the basement, the price goes up a little bit. But like percentage-wise, your square feet doesn't go up to the same price because you've obviously paid for the entire shell and the infrastructure of the home. And so the additional square feet can throw off that number, is why I really don't give it too much weight in the decision making. You never really look at a builder, in my opinion, side by side and say, well, this one's $183 per square feet and this one's $194, so therefore this is a better deal. You know what I mean? For example, with that neighborhood in Coon Rapids, which I don't want to talk bad about it, but it's just the goofiest idea to me ever to have a home in the Midwest without a basement. But with that, for example, let's say they're 2,000 square feet. I don't know exactly, but let's say they're 2,000 square feet. You don't have the potential to ever finish a basement, so therefore the value on that home is going to be less than the same 2,000 square feet in a different single-family home that's got the basement, right? You'd pay more to potentially be able to finish off another 400 square feet or 500 in that basement, or if it's on a 1-acre lot or a 0.2 acre lot. Huge difference there. So hopefully that answers your question, Mitch. Another one from Naota. What are some up-and-coming areas you've seen that's a good option to move to, say, in the mid-300s? So I love the question of always, like, where should we move? And I do tons of content, especially on our YouTube channel. If you've been following me at all, I do a ton on there. I have to be very sensitive and careful about steering people to or from any neighborhoods just for equal housing, because I can't say, like, well, this neighborhood's good and this one's bad, so don't, we can't do that. So that's a pretty tough one to say. For mid-300s, though, that does at least give me a lot more context for you. And I'll say that our current median in the metro is just a little above mid-3s. And so you can actually find the median of the Twin Cities metro is actually going to be in your price point there. And so I know people hate when I won't commit to saying, well, go to Coon Rapids or go to Blaine or go to Apple Valley. I have to be really careful about that. But I'll say, if you're looking for cheaper, generally speaking, closer into the metros, Minneapolis and St. Paul, it gets less expensive in certain parts. It can obviously vary. There's the upscale sides too. Then once you move out kind of the first ring suburbs, they're all fairly similar to the same price point. Okay. Obviously not exactly, but generally speaking, that second ring suburbs, once you're out a little bit, is going to be pretty darn similar, and those are all going to be pretty much in the mid-3s as far as an average median price. Mitch says Northeast, if you like Minneapolis. Yeah, Northeast is great. I would say proper Northeast, like New Brighton side, is probably a little more than mid-3s right now. They're probably more towards 4s. But Northeast is definitely a great area. So I hope that helps. I know that's saying a lot without saying anything, but I can't tell you specifically, do go to this city and don't go to that city, for those reasons. I know it's kind of annoying. Let's see. What are some programs to assist with the funding of building a new construction home? Cool. Okay, so if we're still talking about entry-level first-time home buyer type of price point, first of all, you're not going to be looking at a custom new construction. So if we're looking at new construction and we're trying to keep the price point down, you're going to have to go to a development where a builder, they've usually gone in, they've bought up a whole cornfield, put in the infrastructure, the roads, the utilities, everything else, and then they've divided it all up and they're selling off the lots basically in bulk. By doing that, they can get prices down a lot. Excuse me. So because of that, there isn't necessarily special financing. You don't have to go to a certain lender and get a new construction loan. You can go to any local lender. I've got some recommendations. If you email me, I'll connect you. But basically any of them can finance new construction in that sense. The only time you typically need a new construction specific loan is if you are selecting a one-off lot that you found the lot, and then you're going to go find the builder, and then you're going to get some quotes from a few different builders, and then they're going to build you a lot, and they're going to have different checkpoints that they need to fund it, and it's this whole custom process. When you're doing that, you would need a new construction loan, and that's kind of a whole nother ball game. But there is not special financing that you need for the vast majority of traditional new construction homes. Something to be aware of while we're on that topic is that right now, especially, kind of always, but especially right now with new construction, even if you're going, all right, entry level, let's say we're going to D.R. Horton, right? And you're going to go to their lot, to their development, you will probably not have the option right now of even being able to say, all right, I want this lot and I want this layout and I want that finished package. With most of the production builders, we have this lot already picked out. It's getting this home built on it currently. They won't sell it to you until it's already got the basement dug and they're started framing, and they've already got the finished package picked out for it. So you actually don't even get to pick the finishes in much of the cases. Not always, but depending on depending on the developer, that's actually already picked out. The reason is because of supply chain issues, right? They've got to already know, okay, we're going to build 1,000 homes. Which products can we get and which ones can't we get? And so then they'll put in a specific, grayish package or tans or whatever they're doing, whatever custom or whatever color of cabinets and all that they're already doing. So because of that, a lot of it's already picked out and it is very streamlined. However, they'll also not really commit to a specific close date until they get well along. I think last I had checked with DR, there was something like they have to be to the point of putting the cabinets in before they can really commit to a close date. Because they, with not too long ago, they had like 30% of their carpenters were out because of COVID, right? Well, then that puts a huge delay on things. So just something to be aware of. They still have great finished packages. I rarely have a client that doesn't like one of their 2 or 3 interior finish options, and even their outsides. I mean, they're great, but just something to be aware of with that one. Let's see. Naota says, I'd like to build my dream home in the future, planning around the $450 to $550 in total cost. I really like contemporary style. This isn't really a question, just commenting. Cool. I love it. Honestly, I love when people just dream and see what they want to do in the future. My wife and I are doing the exact same thing right now, and what's that? So I love it. I am your biggest fan. Love it. Like 10 to 15 years from now. Cool. I love it. One thing I'll say is 10 to 15 years from now, that same price point will probably be $100,000 more, which sounds kind of crazy, but just so you have just a realistic picture of if prices go up, average is supposed to be 4% a year. Realistically, this year we're going up 10 or 15. That's a lot in 1 year to go through. So cool. Smoke Doot Sisu. Interesting. It's very interesting when people have not names, then I don't even know what to call you. So, but we'll call you Smoke. Any recommendations on finding the best mortgage rates for veterans? I love it. A few different things. First of all, shop a few different lenders. Whatever type of loan program anybody's watching is going to be looking at. I have personally not seen that the lender makes a huge difference based on FHA or conventional or VA or something like that. So I don't, as far as I'm aware, I've not really seen a huge difference from one lender to the next. I did have somebody use USAA. They had shopped them with Keller Mortgage, and Keller Mortgage actually beat them. And USAA is usually known for being very veteran friendly. So you could definitely check out USAA if you bank there. But generally, their mortgage rates they don't actually vary from one company to another as much as you would think. Again, we had kind of talked before about interest rates. The Fed kind of sets sort of a baseline that That is the standard off which a lot of lenders are all going from there. So some will certainly be higher or lower, but it's not terribly significant. And with VA, they also cut out a lot of points and different things. So I would check out Keller Mortgage. I don't get paid to promote them. I honestly don't care, but they rarely get beat, and they'll save you a bunch on your closing costs too. So check those out. I also have a couple of local people. If you email me, I can send you contact info to them, and it's jcarmack@kw.com. So, another question from Smoke. Average timeline to close in the Twin Cities for home buyers for spring 2022. I'm not seeing huge changes in timelines for closing. When the buyers have to do everything they can to please the sellers, we pretty much ask the sellers when do they want to close, and then we make it happen, whether they want a fast closing or they want a longer closing. So I'm seeing close dates happen more because of what the seller wants, so that the buyer's offer looks as appealing as possible. So because of that, it's still typically 30 to 45 days to close. I am seeing appraisers take a little bit longer, and that's the biggest hang up right now. I don't think it's like a labor shortage, manpower thing, but for whatever reason, appraisers are taking longer. So I'm ideally planning for 45 days from the time you get an offer accepted, but I am planning more time to get your offer accepted, right? Because the buyers there's more competition, you're having to make more offers that aren't getting accepted, and so that time frame is lengthened. So typically I'll tell people to plan for about 60 days to get your offer accepted. It's kind of a worst case scenario, but that's realistic. So maybe 60 days to get your offer accepted, and then 30 to 45 to close. That's a good question. Mitch, are you still seeing multiple offers and a hot market? Yes. Unfortunately, we're flaming hot right now. Yeah, okay, so let me give you the market snapshot in a minute. We actually just today recorded the full market update for last month, which is a huge one. So I would definitely go find us on YouTube and subscribe and all that jazz. Here's the market in a snapshot. We were at 1 month supply of inventory. We're supposed to be between 4 and 6. The less we are, the more of a seller's market we're in. Last month, we went down to 0.8. So we actually went into 20% more of a seller's market than we had already been, which was the previous new record. And if we look at like a rolling week, I think we're actually like 0.53 or some crazy number. The lower it goes, the more of a seller's market we're in. So yes, can I be quite honest with you guys? We're really between a rock and a hard place, okay? And I'm not like pushing you towards one thing or another, but you got to understand what your market is. You can either buy a house now, compete in multiples, and have a hard time getting offer accepted, and you're giving those sellers literally everything you possibly can, which kind of hurts you, but it helps them, so therefore it helps get your offer accepted. And you could do that and do it now. Interest rates are low now, however, they're going up. Or on the other extreme, you're saying, all right, forget it, we're just going to wait. We're going to hold off. We're not going to buy a house now. We're going to see if the market cools off. The problem is we're not seeing anything that's going to indicate that the market's going to cool off. It would be great if it did, but honestly, there's no real indicators to say the Minnesota real estate market's going to cool off anytime soon. However, we do see two things that are coming against us, and that's going to be interest rates are going up. They're already up about 0.5 point from just 1 month ago, December to January, according to Freddie Mac I just pulled this morning. And we're expecting them to go up, I would say, at least another 1% in 2022, okay? So if your interest rate goes up, your borrowing power goes down by about 10% per 1% interest rate going up. That's a huge, huge difference, okay? If you haven't, go check up the TikTok video that I did. But I basically broke down, if you buy a house right now for $300 or you hold off and wait, that same home is going to be almost $500 more per month because the price went up and the interest rates goes up, okay? So if I've ever become a pushy guy, it's going to be like now. I don't ever want to come across that like that. But we're between a rock and a hard place. And I think to not have to pay all that ridiculous amount of additional interest is worth the short-term struggle and frustration of having to compete in multiples. So yes, the market is super hot. It got hotter last month. I don't know why it's so freaking hot. And by hot, we mean competitive and aggressive and so many buyers for very few listings. So hot so early in the year. But this is similar to what we had seen like the peak of summer last year as far as how aggressive it was. So yes, very, very hot and aggressive. And unfortunately, I still think it's going to be a whole lot better for people that are wanting to move this year to do it sooner rather than later so that they don't have super high interest rates down the road. There we go. And Steve gave you a link to my TikTok. Honestly, we've been doing a ton of content on there. So if you're looking for short form stuff, we're on YouTube and all that too. But that's been a really, really cool thing too. Smoke, you're welcome. Appreciate you being here, man. Thank you so much. Him or her, I don't know who I'm talking to, but I'm just kidding. I love it. Smoked out Caesar. I'm totally reading it wrong. See, this is terrible when you're doing this live. Love it. Thank you for the questions. Mitch, give me some more questions. I love it. Anybody that's on, if you're just tuning in, looks like we've got quite a few. We're on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram live all at the same time. So I'm trying to keep up with questions and comments on all three of them. Post me a question. Would love to know what's on your mind. Want to talk about whatever you guys want to talk about. All things Twin Cities real estate. We're talking about buying. We're talking about selling. We don't talk about selling a lot. It seems like most of the questions are always on buying, which is interesting to me because typically, sellers are the ones like paying the expense and they're going through the hassle of getting their home ready and stuff. So we can talk about whatever you guys want to talk about. I enjoy buying and selling both very much. What other questions do we have? What other questions do we have? Otherwise, okay, so we talked about new construction. Can we talk about another? If we don't have any more questions coming in, Steve, will you make sure we're good on Instagram? Because I'm not, I don't know if I'm checking the feed right for questions on Instagram, but it's the first time I've ever gone live on the old Insta. But can we talk about down payment assistance for a second? And if this totally doesn't resonate with you guys, then we can talk about something else. I'm happy to go in whichever direction you guys want. Something that's driving me nuts, kind of grinding my gears, especially on the TikToks and social medias and all this, right, is especially lenders, it seems like, are all about this whole, hey, it's cool, I can get you pre-approved for, with a 580 credit score and no money down and blah, blah, blah. I don't want to go on a big soapbox, but this is such garbage advice that people are telling you. Is it possible? The answer is yes. You can get a loan, I've heard, as low as 580 with basically nothing down. Here's the question. That doesn't mean that you should, okay? Just because someone's going to approve you for this loan doesn't mean that it's a good idea. And what's even more important is, in today's market, sellers don't like down payment assistance buyers. The reason is it tells them that they're financially not nearly as stable, okay? Excuse me. Let's talk to the other extreme. Okay, let's say you're doing 20% down, you're doing a huge earnest money, you're coming in, you're solid. That's going to communicate to the sellers, you've got your finances together, you've got your stuff in a group, and they don't have to worry about your financing falling through after they accept your offer, right? So if they've got 10 different offers, honestly, we just had one, and maybe I shouldn't even tell you this because I don't want you to get discouraged. I kid you not, I just had a buyer that had 46 other offers on the home that they were making an offer on. It's insane. That's by far the extreme. It's not normally like that, but when that's the case, and we're kind of splitting hairs between smaller things that may or may not really matter that much, but if all else was the same, what else are we going to do? It's stuff like that comes down to, and that can be the deal breaker in whether or not your offer gets accepted. Okay, so if we've got a seller, they're looking at a bunch of offers from buyers, they're not going to take the one that's down payment assistance. Okay, 9 times out of 10. I mean 99 out of 100. They're not going to accept it. So I'm not going to fill you with hopes and dreams that, hey, let's just go buy a house when you don't have your finances in order, you got no money, you're barely scraping together anything, and your credit's terrible. The rates they're going to give you are terrible. The terms of your loan are going to be terrible. And the chances of you even getting an offer accepted is terrible in today's market. And so do I want everybody able to buy a home? Yes. If you need to get down payment assistance, I'll help you by all means necessary. But I would honestly challenge a person looking for down payment assistance programs to get their credit fixed up first, to get their savings in order. Everywhere is hiring right now. So go top grade your job, earn more, get a second job, work for Uber or whatever, and make some extra money to save up to do it right so that you can get a better loan that's going to serve you better for the next 30 years, and then buy a house, okay? I realize that means you'll probably have to rent a little bit longer, and that's 100% what I would tell any family or friend or client of mine to do. Okay, rant over on down payment assistance, but seriously, these TikTok people are driving me bonkers. Mitch Johnson, is it worth it to build a third car garage stall? So something that's actually really cool, Most new construction is coming with 3 stalls right now, which is really, really cool. You've got to look a little bit further out. Obviously, like there's not a lot of new construction in the metro proper anyways because it's all developed, but because most new construction is pushing out of the metro a little bit, you're actually getting a third car anyways most of the time. So I mean, in that sense, you're going to get one anyways. If you're building new construction, yeah, definitely. If you're building like a custom new construction, I would not build new construction without a third car. It's definitely, it's not a huge expense when you're already building the whole rest of the house. Like it's not like it's like a bunch of finished square feet necessarily. It's just pushing out the garage a little bit. So yes, if you got the land, you can do it. 100% I would do a third car garage. Something else that's really interesting while we're on that topic? I can't tell you the number of people that I have that are looking for pole barns. So as silly as it might sound, I'm not sure what you're thinking if you already have a house or if you're looking at doing a custom or something. But people that have like even an acre or more or something, if you put a pole barn on your lot, I don't know what the exact data would say, but I guarantee you that putting a pole barn on there is totally worth it, right? I mean, I'm not talking like something super fancy, but something that you can go park a boat in or a nice house or whatever. I see so many people that ask they want a lot with a pole barn. And you're like, well, it's not even that expensive to put one in. Like, just do one. Like, no, they just want it already on the lot. They want it to be established with a pole barn. So there you go. If you can't build on, if it's an existing house, maybe I wouldn't probably pay to build a third stall onto it, but get you a slab, a cement floor pole barn. I like it. Smoked out. Talk to me about your question. This person asks, any thoughts on loan forbearance? If you can give me a little more context, that'll help me know which direction you're coming from. Any thoughts on loan forbearance? I mean, I could just like ramble, but I don't necessarily want to just go in any direction. Let me know what your question is, and I can. Excuse me. It seems like I always got like junk in my throat whenever I try and go live and do so much talking. But cool. Hey, people that are tuning in, let me know your questions. We're just shooting the breeze, man. Whatever you guys want to talk about. I've got some time. We got at least another 20 minutes probably, and we can answer any and all real estate questions you've got. I would love to know too, with you guys that are chatting with me, let me know, are you in Minnesota already? Or are you guys moving to Minnesota? Because a ton of my channel has actually been people outside Minnesota in the US that are coming to Minnesota. But there's definitely a number of locals as well. So I'd be very curious if you guys are in Minnesota or out. Okay, Smoked Out. He didn't reply yet, but he or she, but any thoughts on loan forbearance? I mean, first of all, don't get foreclosed on. So if that means you got to do a loan forbearance program, I mean, by all means, do what you got to do. Thoughts on loan forbearance? I mean, again, I wish are you, I know this is really personal. I don't want to like dig into your personal business in front of people, but, that's such a tough one. As far as loan forbearance goes, here's my thoughts. If you are struggling financially to the point where you just genuinely can't make your payments, my question would be, what's going on that has kept you from being able to? Zero judgment at all, because honestly, we all hit hard times. My initial thought would always be, with so many places hiring right now, my first question would be, could you go get a better job or a second job to top grade what you got going on to make more income, to be able to afford your home? Loan forbearance isn't like they're just going to give you free money. You're still going to have to pay it. There's usually going to be interest, fees, back penalties, different things. Maybe they're just going to tag it on to the end of your loan. Like, it's not like it's just free money, right? Nobody's going to let you live for free. And it's always going to be short term. With COVID, from my understanding, most of that has already ended, and the different federal stimulus things have expired. I could be wrong. I don't follow it super, super carefully, but maybe how to utilize it if necessary, they say. It's going to expire. So there's something bigger going on that's got a person struggling to pay their bills. And so my suggestion would be more to focus on what's got you to this place and how do we make a game plan to get out of it. I mean, you've got my number. Feel free to call and I'll talk to you more specifically on yours because I'd love to know. But I'd say, first of all, let's figure out what the problem is and how to fix the problem before we go down the rabbit hole of loan forbearance, right? If there's a situation that has you unable to make your payments this month, okay. But I would say let's figure out how to find one of these companies. Like everywhere is hiring, and they're got like $1,000 sign-on bonuses for like Taco Bell. You know what I mean? So I would say I would go that route first. It's temporary. They're going to pull that rug out from under you at some point. Any kind of loan modification thing. Here's a great story, which I'm not sure if this is your situation. I had a client maybe about 2 years ago selling their house. And they had done a loan modification, it's called. Kind of a shady deal. They didn't seem to really understand what the terms they were signing up for were even. But basically, it was just a way to reduce your payments, right? Whatever they did, they refied and they essentially pulled out some of their principal balance. They put that into a second mortgage that they weren't making payments on, but which was accruing interest, and it had to get repaid once the loan was sold or refinanced out. They didn't know what was going on, for better or for worse. I don't know whose fault it was, but because of that whole thing, we went to then sell their house. All of a sudden, the title company pulls their documents, and they see that, they have this huge thing. Maybe, I think it was like 30 grand or something that they had pulled off of their principal to reduce their monthly payment. But then they had 30,000 outstanding, which had a bunch of penalties and fees and interest. And so then when they went to repay it, it was like 40,000 or whatever. So then when they wanted to sell their house to go upgrade to something bigger, all of a sudden they couldn't, and they had no equity. They thought they did, and they didn't. So I just say that to say, like, most of them are, they're not helpful in the long term. And if you can, I would definitely try to steer clear of it. I don't know the situation for you, but I'll say even in today's day and age, first of all, foreclosures are very, very few and far between as far as on the market. And the reason is because home prices have gone up so significantly that the vast majority of people have a ton of equity sitting in their home. So in certain cases, I might even tell you to just sell your house to take the equity. Maybe you've got a bunch of debt you need to pay off, or some other situation. If that would help you get back onto your feet, that's another option, you could look at too. And I'm not saying everyone should just sell, but I'm not a fan. I wouldn't do loan forbearance unless it was a last ditch effort, that you were upside down, you couldn't get out of your home. As far as selling it, not my first option for sure. Cool. Who else we got? Questions. Oh, there we go. Minnesota and Northeast. Samothea. Cool. Local. I love it. It's been kind of a fun mix since we've hit so much on YouTube. And thanks for that, for everybody that's watching. I think we're at 730 subscribers or something. So that's been really, really cool. A lot of people coming in and out of Minnesota that I've been helping, and a lot of locals too. So I love it. All right, give me some more questions. We've got, what do I think? We got about 10 more minutes or so, 15, and would love to go from there. Let me see a couple of questions. Let's see if I got any good ones that I should pull up. Oh, I got you smoked. Thank you for the context. I'm not even going to read it out loud because I don't want to share too much of your story, but really cool. First of all, kudos to you, man, helping her out. I think that's really, really cool. Honestly, give me a call. Honestly, it's free advice. I'm not any smarter or less smart than you see right here, so feel free to give me a call. Would be happy to help figure out a plan for you, even if that's not selling or whatever that is for you guys. I think that's cool. Let's see. Should we talk about inspections? This has been a really hot button topic. I'm going to probably tick some people off, and I won't do it on purpose, I promise, even though I wouldn't hesitate sometimes. Inspections have been kind of under fire a lot lately, and I'm talking mostly buyer inspections when you're purchasing. Here's the story if you're not aware of it. Something like 40 to 50%, I believe, of offers accepted right now don't have home inspections from the buyer. And some people are going to be like, what in the world? I would never think of doing that. I've also seen some agents kind of taking shots at other agents of like, well, I'd never tell my buyer to not get an inspection on a property, right? That's just crazy. Kind of, maybe. I'll let you decide. You can be the judge of that one. But here's what I will tell you. I think the actual number of buyers. So, all right, if we're looking at the entire market, all offers accepted, the number I had heard from a local company is something like 40 to 50% don't have inspections. That's also going to include new construction, though. So I don't know what the baseline is for in a normal market average over the last 10 years or whatever, like how many buyers would have them. But I've got to imagine there's probably 10 or 15% that never had inspections to begin with. They're arm's length transactions. It's a parent selling to a kid or a neighbor selling to somebody. They know them, they trust them, who needs an inspection. Or it's new construction and they're thinking, well, there's home warranties, so who cares, right? So there's already going to be a whole bunch that were already waived anyways. Then of the other ones, you're going to see there's a bunch of homes that have already been on the market. I'm seeing sellers overpricing their home, so then they sit, then they have a price reduction, then they sell, then they don't really have an option but to accept a buyer's offer with an inspection. So the homes that are priced correctly, that are put on the market, that are in good condition, that aren't new construction, of those ones, how many are having an inspection accepted? And in my experience, I would say there's probably maybe 10% of those offers are getting accepted with a buyer inspection. Okay, now this is mostly my gut and from what I've seen with my own buyers. But when I've got a buyer that maybe they've made an offer and it's $50,000 over list with no inspection, and the buyer's putting up to $10,000 in case the appraisal comes up short, and their offer's still not getting accepted, that tells me that things are kind of crazy, and that if you haven't seriously considered waiving an inspection, your chances of getting your offer accepted are dramatically lower. So I think the actual data is going to suggest that it's something you really need to look at. That's also part of why I'm just not a fan of down payment assistance programs, because you're focusing on the wrong thing. You're trying to get help from all the other players to make it happen for you. And in this market, that just doesn't work. And so I would still say what I've been preaching for months is, if you're buying a house, you just need to stockpile the cash, because whether or not you get an inspection primarily comes down to the amount of risk that you can absorb. If the furnace goes wrong, or if the stove ends up that it doesn't work, or goes out quickly, right? Also, from my perspective, appliances work great, and then you close on the house, and then who knows if they're going to work afterwards, right? So you're getting your inspection, you're getting a list of things that may be wrong with the home, something like an age on the furnace. Well, if the furnace is working currently, the seller's not going to do anything about it anyways. So you just spent maybe $1,000 on your inspections for the seller to not do anything, when instead you could have saved that $1,000 and put it towards a future expense that would have come up, or that might come up anyways. So just because you found out that the stove is working doesn't mean it's going to work forever, right? So I never push a buyer to or from an inspection, but I do think it's a really, really important conversation that buyers need to have either with themselves or with their spouse. And you've got to decide how important that is to you. And really look at the risks of what could go wrong, right? I've got a background in construction. I worked for a remodeling company that's one of the top, I think they're like top 500 in the country. So personally, I've got a really good idea of, you can usually tell if there's like major things going on, or if the home just hasn't been taken care of. When it seems like the home's been taken really well care of, for a lot of people, it's just smarter to take that inspection money, waive their inspection, but keep that in their pocket in case something goes wrong after closing. Then they'll actually have that money to do something with, instead of just throwing it away for a FYI at the time that you get your offer accepted. And it'll help your offer to just be much more likely to get accepted. So that's my rant. Again, it's up to you as a buyer to decide if you want to get a home inspection or not. But your chances are, 10x more likely, maybe 5x more likely to get your offer accepted if you don't have an inspection period. So there you go. Josh L., what's going on, my friend? Let's see. Josh asks, wife and I are saving for a down payment. Attaboy, in case you missed my rant on down payment assistance earlier. Saving for down payment on our first home right now. I've heard from other realtors that the market will have a lower barrier to entry in 2 to 3 years. What are your thoughts? I love it. Glad you're here, man. Doesn't matter at all that let's talk about this. Okay, first of all, lots of parts. Let me pick it apart. First of all, kudos to you actually saving, getting a down payment together. Regardless, you can still plan for a minimum down payment, 3 to 3.5% typically. That's what I would shoot for a first-time buyer buying your home. Second thing, make sure you're also planning for closing costs. That's also another 3.5 to 4%. So generically, I'll tell people to plan for about 7% of the cost of the home to have in the bank for the purchase outside of an emergency fund, okay? Something like 7%, really rough generic ballpark. So that's the first thing. Kudos to you. Second thing, you've heard from other realtors that the market will have a lower barrier to entry in 2 or 3 years. Thoughts are yes and no. barrier to entry, there's lots of different barriers. So you'll have some of yes and some of no. Here's what I mean. I pretty much guarantee you interest rates will be significantly higher in 2 to 3 years. Okay. Currently we're at, 3.5 or something is our average interest rates right now for mortgages. They're expecting that's going to go up like 1% this year, right? Crystal ball coming out. Thank you, Mitch. That's the story of my life right now. It's okay. So first of all, barrier of entry, no, in the sense that interest rates I pretty much guarantee will be higher. The long-term interest average of interest rates is something like 8%. So the fact that we're less than half of that currently, we've got a long ways to go just to get back to average. If interest rates go up any 1%, 2%, 3%, that's going to mean that you're going to be able to afford considerably less home in 2 to 3 years. I'm not saying you should just accelerate your plan and hurry up and buy now, right? I'm not doomsday skies falling guy, but you also have to be realistic that, go follow me on TikTok. I put this video out. It's in the feed if you can see it in your chat window, but find me on TikTok, and I put a video out where I basically broke down if you buy a house now versus a year from now, only 1 year from now, the payment on that same house is going to be like $490 higher if the predictions that they're saying come true as far as prices and interest rates. Okay. Fast forwarding 2 to 3 years, so another 1 to 2 years beyond that, I have no idea what home prices will be looking like. It's possible that they'll come down in a couple years. I don't think it'll be a big or significant or fast dip in prices, but I think 2 to 3 years from now, seeing prices starting to go down, that's realistic from what I've seen. Again, the market's not crashing. That's not going to be hard and fast and overnight, right? But yes, we could see prices lower in 2 to 3 years. You've also got to think from now, if we go up for a year or two and then we crest and start going down, well, then maybe they would actually be the same as they are today. So it's not necessarily lower overall versus buying now versus buying in 3 years. We might be here, we'll go up, we'll go down, and you'd be at the same place. But two conversations, prices of homes and interest rates on those mortgages, your mortgages will be higher. I don't think that will come down to where we're at anytime soon. So, in that sense, no, it's going to have a higher barrier of entry overall, in my opinion. But then the whole second side of that conversation, third side, fourth side, is going to be just simply how competitive it's going to be. And I have to imagine we will be a less competitive market 2 to 3 years from now. Right now, we were talking, we're in literally the strongest sellers market we've ever seen in, as far as my MLS will take me back, is 12 or 13 years. By far the most seller favored market we've ever been in. I have to imagine that's going to be curving back with all the other indicators that I'm seeing. So if that happens, sweet, that would be fantastic. We would love to see all of that. We would take that for sure. So what I'm saying is there going to be less competition, maybe less multiple offers, less waiving inspections and doing that kind of stuff? Yeah, I think that's pretty realistic. So we like that. However, you're still going to have a higher payment just simply because of prices potentially being higher and definitely interest rates being higher. So I love it. Thank you, Josh. Love that. Give me more questions. If you're thinking about buying your house, I love first-time buyers. So what other questions do you have while you're on, man? Would love to answer those. And if you guys are just tuning in, we've got quite a few that just joined us. If you're on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, let me know where you're watching from. I'd love to know if you're local or if you're out of state, because we have a lot of California and Texas and everybody else that are coming in. So let me know where you're watching from, which platform you're on, and what your real estate questions are. We're just shooting the breeze. We've got another 5-10 minutes that I'll be on, and would love to get in a few more questions for you. Let's see. Josh, thank you. Let's see. Josh says, any locations you'd consider good investments, growth opportunities for a young couple? Where do I see the best investment opportunity? For a first-time buyer, so this is a very multifaceted question I want to give you a good answer to. Typically, what I would say is more in the suburbs than closer into a metro. And I'm not necessarily naming a city because of all the weird equal housing, trouble I can get myself in. But because of expansion happening so much, more people are moving out and about. COVID happened, everyone can work remote. All these companies that may or may not even be going back into the metro, so they don't necessarily have to commute downtowns. I think prices will soften or stay more stagnant closer to the metros, and I think more people are going to be moving to the suburbs. So if you buy in the suburbs now and then more people continue that trend, more so than in the cities, and that would increase those prices more significantly. So I would say generally like a second ring suburb, maybe like if you look at a map, I'm not sure if you're local or not, Josh, but the Elk Rivers, the Delanos, the Rogers, Otsego's, that kind of a distance, maybe, what is that, probably 15 miles from downtowns. That would probably be where I'm focusing. For anyone looking to buy now, you said you're a couple years out. I will say I think new construction is a huge opportunity right now, because prices are only going to keep going up, obviously. But what I do really love about new construction with something like a DR Horton, prices we were talking about earlier are somewhere in the 4.25-ish range for entry-level homes. Maybe a little bit less, maybe a little bit more. But what's really nice about new construction in a development is you can just go pick your house and you buy it, and that's it. There's not all this crazy competing and all these really difficult terms that buyers are having to give up. So personally, I love that. If you can afford it, I don't know what your budget is. I don't think you said. That's definitely where I would be focusing first. Would be something like that. It would be a little bit out in the suburbs. If you can get new construction, if you're buying in a really competitive market, I like it for that sake. Less risk, less hassle, more expense. You got to be able to afford it, but I do like that. I can't think of any other cities specifically that have been just really booming. I feel like there's like little pockets that kind of pop and go. Rogers was really big a few years ago. I'm not sure that it's expanding as much nowadays, but Otsego has grown quite a bit. I mean, honestly, Otsego's seen a huge increase in new construction developments, plowing down cornfields, putting in houses. So I mentioned hour out. Yeah. I mean, Elk River, first of all, is not an hour. That's maybe 45 minutes or so. But yeah. I mean, more people are moving out. They don't want to be in the cities necessarily, especially around the Twin Cities. And because so many people can work remote and their jobs aren't going back into the office or aren't nearly as much, I'm seeing a ton of people. I'm actually surprised. I've got 2 or 3 different sets of clients right now that they're not tied to anything necessarily. Several that are transplanting into Minnesota. And they're like, I don't care. I just want to live where I'm living. I want to have a great house. I want to have, parks and trails and stuff nearby or whatever they care about. And they'll say an hour or 2 radius around the Twin Cities, and they don't even care which side sometimes. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised by an hour at all around the Twin Cities. Mm-hmm. That doesn't mean it's a bad investment to be in the cities by any means. Obviously, there's a ton of demand there as well, but I think more people are looking to get more space instead of less space. That's all I'm saying. Smoked. Really interested in getting about 1/8 of an acre, but I like the suburbs. Good Lord, my friend, what are you finding that's only 1/8 of an acre? That is teeny tiny. Are we talking like a condo or what? 1/8 of an acre is tiny. Typically, especially in the suburbs, I mean, like 1/4 of an acre is pretty common, which would be double that much. So that's pretty common. I'll say it is pretty stinking rare to see new construction that's more than about 1/4 of a third of an acre. I mean, like maybe a half if you're really lucky, if there's like a big corner lot or something in a smaller development. Pretty unusual to see that. People have asked me a few times lately, they want like an acre of new construction at an entry-level price point, and that just doesn't really happen. Because builders, obviously, if they can put 3 houses on an acre lot, they're going to do that all day, every day, pretty much. So unless it's like a real high-end, luxury type thing. Nate W. Hey, what's going on? Thanks for being here, my friend. Thoughts on buying a house where permits are not pulled but updates were made? Ooh, I got thoughts on everything, my friend. Okay, thoughts on buying a house where the permits weren't pulled but updates were made. If we're talking about an entire house, then no way, dude. Run for the hills. I'm assuming you're talking about remodel updates to certain things. Okay, full transparency. I used to work for a general contractor, so I worked very closely with a lot of different inspectors or saw my bosses dealing with them. Inspectors can be a huge pain in the butt, and they have all kinds of regulatory red tape that is honestly super obnoxious to deal with, and there can be just an annoying amount of expense. So even for the great remodelers that are doing excellent work, they all hate working with inspectors. Okay, don't shoot the messenger, but that's just the truth. And so I'm not going to say that it was me, of course, but a lot of homeowners also know that to be the truth. So for folks that worked for general contractors in the past, they're going to be more inclined to do the work and do it very well and not want to have the hassle of dealing with an inspector and they're just being a pain in the butt just for fun. I will cautiously tell you, I wouldn't necessarily just rule out a house just because there was work done that was done without a permit. Personal opinion. I mean, you decide whatever you want to do. I would not just rule out a whole house because of something like that. Also, just because permits were pulled definitely does not mean that everything was done correctly, was done up to code, that it was high quality work. Okay, so a permit is not like some golden ticket for everything being done well. And so you need to be, first of all, I don't care if it's new construction, like you need to be looking to make sure that things were done well as can be seen. Okay, here's a great example for you. Had a client, super cool lady, bought a duplex a year or two ago, year and a half maybe. It had been remodeled. Everything was done by the city. Everything was signed off, general contractors, permits, blah, blah, blah. It was all perfect. She bought the house, I don't know, 2 months later maybe, a water pipe inside the wall burst. No one could have possibly seen that. And it was all permitted. Everything was done according to specs, right? A water burst, it ruined the floors. It was like this whole ordeal. Home insurance covered it, like it was fine. We moved on. I just say that to say, just because there's permits pulled doesn't mean it was done correctly or as well as should have been. And just because there weren't permits pulled doesn't mean it was done terribly. So maybe that's going to make you more inclined to want to get home inspection done. Get a second opinion, something like that. It depends what we're talking about. We're talking about a deck where you can see exactly how it was done because it's all open. Well, then you can decide, right? It's if it was done well, not if it was permitted. Versus if it's a bathroom or plumbing or electrical or something that's behind the walls that you can't see, you'll have to decide that one. But those are some thoughts. Hopefully that helps you. Mitch says Woodbury, Eagan, Edina are nice suburbs with some reasonable prices. Yeah, I'm not going to argue with you. They're all very nice suburbs for sure. All three of those that you've named definitely have higher than average MLS prices. So in all fairness, that's not by any means is not reasonable. Not median prices by any means. Edina is some of the highest in our metro. So, Smoked, are new Ramblers being built anymore? Yeah, actually, new Ramblers are definitely being built. You know what I see a lot of lately? It's like the 3-level split style. So you walk in on the main level, kitchen, living room, dining, maybe you walk out to the backyard or something, and then you go up to a few bedrooms, down to a bedroom, and then a living room. So I'm seeing that style a lot. It's kind of like a hybrid Rambler split sort of thing. Those are very common. Ramblers are definitely being built. They're actually a lot more expensive than you would think. Rambler is kind of seen as the more like modest entry level sort of home. But you've actually got a ton of boomers that are downsizing. They don't want their stairs or their split entries. And because of that, there's actually a really high demand on Ramblers. So they're actually more expensive. So anything with a main level bedroom that doesn't involve stairs, more expensive. Not crazy as much, but Mitch says Smoke knows about water pipes breaking. I feel like there's an inside joke that I'm totally missing. But I love it. I love it. Cool. Guys, it is 4 o'clock. It's 4:05. We are going to sign off. Thanks so much for being here. This is always really fun. We're going to do it trying to do about monthly. So make sure we're on all the socials. When I sign off, you'll see our handles. You can go grab those. But thanks for being here. Thanks for hanging out. Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, all the different fun places. Appreciate you being here. Would love to connect. So make sure you follow, like, subscribe, all that good jazz. And I will see you next time. Thanks, guys.